Greetings, I'm John Setzler. Welcome back to Kamado Joe Cooking Channel. Today I'm going to take another request that we've had a lot of. We're finally going to get to cook a tri-tip roast. Here in western North Carolina where I live, I have a difficult time finding this. Nobody carries it. This is a particularly popular cut on the west coast. It hasn't really discovered its popularity here in the east yet, but thanks to the guys at Double R Ranch, we've been hooked up with a really nice tri-tip roast. It weighs a little over 3 pounds. So we're going to fire up the Big Joe and go to work. So let's get started. Okay, I have fired up the Kamado Joe. I used 2 of our Kamado Joe starter cubes in here, and I put 3 chunks of the Kamado Joe oak wood in here for smoke, and I set my lower grill in place because we're going to cook the first part of this cook up here over indirect heat at about 250 degrees, and then when we get close to being done, we're going to bring it down here and sear the outside of it. And I'm going to show you how we've set the vents for 250. In order to keep our temperature low at 250, I'm going to slide the lower vent to about 2 inches open. We're going to leave that there through the entire cook, and we're not going to mess with that. And I'm going to close the slider on the top vent all the way and open the daisy wheel fully until I get close to temp, and then we'll adjust the size of the openings in the daisy wheel. We'll shorten those up a little bit if we need to keep the temperature down. Hey, while our grill's coming up to temp, we're going to get this tri-tip ready. I have already taken the liberty of trimming most of the external fat off of this meat. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to season it, and we're going to do this to both sides. I'm going to shake on a nice layer of granulated garlic, and then we're going to follow that with a coat of whatever your favorite barbecue rub is, and you're just going to put a nice liberal coat of that on there, and we're going to pat it down and let it sit for a few minutes, and then we're going to flip it over and do the other side. And by the time we get to that point, our grill will be ready to go. Okay, our grill's up to temp, so we're going to grab this tri-tip and set it right here on the indirect side of the grill, and we're going to monitor the temperature inside here. We want our internal temperature during the first stage of this cook to get up to 110 to 115 degrees. So I am going to insert a meat probe right into the middle of the thick part of this meat so we can monitor that, and we'll be back when this guy gets up to about 110 or 115. And while our steak's cooking, we're going to put together a sauce reduction to go on this. We're going to start out with some really good stuff. This is one of my favorite whiskeys to cook with, this Maker's Mark. We're going to start out, I've got a 2-quart saucepan here. I'm going to put 1 cup of the Maker's Mark whiskey in there, and I'm going to turn the heat on to probably medium high. We've got 2/3 of a cup of brown sugar, 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar, about 1/3 of a cup of soy sauce, about 1 teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper, and about another teaspoon of garlic powder. I'm just going to whisk all that together until it dissolves. And now that all that's dissolved, we're going to let that come up to a slow boil. After that mixture starts to warm up, I'm going to hit it with a match and do a little flambe there on the alcohol and let that burn off. And after that burns off, you want to be careful with that because that's going to flame up a little bit. You might want to turn the heat down before you do it. We're going to let this slow boil until we reduce this until it starts to thicken up. Okay, we've reduced this down, and what I'm looking for here is reducing it down to about a 3/4 cup volume. This is not going to be a really thick sauce. It's going to be kind of thin. It's going to thicken up just a hair as it cools, but we're going to set that aside and have it ready to go when the tri-tip comes off. Okay folks, Our tri-tip is up to between 110 and 115 in the middle. So I am going to take the meat probe out and we're going to pull this guy off. And what I've done is I've just set it on some aluminum foil. I'm going to wrap it and cover it and kind of, I'm not going to worry about wrapping it really tightly. We're just going to let it sit aside, completely wrapped. And I'm going to open the vents up on the grill and we're going to let this side of the grill get screaming hot so we can put a sear on this tri-tip. Okay, we've got our grill nice and hot. We're going to go about 30 to 45 seconds on each side to put a little sear on this. Then we're going to burp the grill before we open it fully. And give this guy a flip. And let him go for another minute, 30 seconds to a minute. Then we're going to pull this guy off, put it back in the foil and wrap it and let it sit for about 10 or 15 minutes before we slice it up. Okay folks, I've taken this tri-tip and sliced off a little bit of it, and we're going to drizzle on some of this whiskey reduction we made, and we're going to have a taste. I'm going to take one of these pieces right here and just slice a little bit off of it. Man, that is super tender. Got a nice little crust going on there. Can't wait to taste this. Oh man. Wow. Let me tell you something, folks. That stuff right there is fantastic. And this beef is beautiful. It has a beautiful flavor. It's a fantastic cut of meat. I highly recommend trying this. Try out these Double R Ranch tri-tips. I'll leave you a link in the video description of how to get to these things. They're fantastic. This is the same company that produced that cowboy chop steak that we cooked last week, and this is outstanding. I can't wait to finish that. So until next time, this is John Setzler with Kamado Joe Cooking Channel.